them. They're going to talk about. Over to you.
Good afternoon, professors and distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. It's a great pleasure that welcome you here and introduce our topic. And our topic is customized content testing using Google Forms and Flubaroo. So which is becoming more, how can I say, interactive way of tool that you use in your teaching process. Now our mate will go on with our topic.
Hello everyone, thank you for coming, and today we are going to talk about Google Forms and Flubaroo. And before our research we were thinking about the problem which usually arises while with teaching, and there are a lot of them. And we decided to focus on one of these problems. It's like how organize students' tasks effectively and efficiently. And for this purpose, we decided to find applications which, to some extent, can help you with this challenge. And here you can see the aims of our research. We decided to develop model tests using Google Forms. And namely, it's a survey for teachers. We altered it in order to understand teachers' preferences in using tools and in selecting questions, types of questions. And then we obtained results. We scored and analyzed with Flubaroo. And if you are not familiar with Google Forms, I would like to introduce it for you briefly. First of all, Google Forms is a cloud-based technology. It means that you can access it from everywhere. And Google Forms is an administration app that is a part of Google Drive Office. And so Google Forms can be used to conduct quizzes, questionnaire, or any surveys. And you might ask us, why Google Forms? And first of all, Google Forms is free. And to start, you only need to Google account. And also Google Forms allow you to store feedback, and also you can limit the answer and collect the participants or recipients' email address. And it has really good feature which called preview mode. And when you create your quiz or survey, and before the sending, you can see how it looks like, and you can change something or arrange something. And also after that, you can share with your survey or quiz by email or on website or social network profile. And as far as I know, a lot of applications have like limited number of questions, and if you exceed this number, you need to pay like some additional fee. But in Google Forms, it's free, and you can create as much numbers of questions as you want. However, all those things, it's like technical advantages. But what actually teachers and users think about the Google Forms? For this purpose, we have created a survey, and our participants were 30 teachers, and they were from different universities, from South Korea, from Uzbekistan. Some of them are English tutor and TESOL-MALL students. As you can see, the main fields of the participants are English language. It's like 80% of them. education 23% and technology. Also one engineering and one business and one don't have any experience as a teacher. However, I know this person also relates to education system, just believe me. And then we also decided to see the occupation of our participants. And mostly they are English teachers. It's like 11 participants responded that they English teachers. Then assistant professors, and 5 of them professors, educators and students, and even engineer. And you can see that we can, to some extent, rely on their preferences and on their opinions about tools and questions which they prefer to use for quizzes. And at the next slide you can see actually the quizzes, the tools which they prefer to use. And the most popular was Google Forms. It's like 40% of our respondents told us that it's really good. And then it's followed by Microsoft and Microsoft Word. And then I asked them to rate the Google Forms. And we were really stunned with these results because nobody was not unsatisfied with Google Forms. And half of our participants had a neutral position about Google Forms. 37 of them were really satisfied with this. And more than 10 were very satisfied with this. And there was one more reason why we decided to create our quizzes by Google Forms. Okay, let's turn back to Google Forms questions and Google Forms content. First of all, Google Forms has 8 types of questions. It's a big list of them: short answer, paragraph questions, and these 2 are related to open-ended questions. Others, like multiple choice, checkboxes, drop-down, linear scale, multiple choice grid, checkbox grid, they're related to closed-ended questions. And it's like a big list of them. And we just were thinking about which one is which 2 actually are more popular. And here you can see the result. And as was found that the most popular is the multiple choice question. It's like more than 73% told us like, oh, it's really good to use. And short answer question, also 70% told us like, it's really good to use short answer question in quiz or questionnaire. And you may like be confusing why it's like 73% and 70%, because it was multiple choice question, and teachers can could select all of them, or just several of them, or one of these answer. And regarding to this, we decided to create 2 quizzes for students. And who were our participants? It was 20 students. They are freshmen and they are intermediate level class, and they're from Uzbekistan, from academic lyceum. And the aim of these quizzes will examine the students' lexical knowledge in the course. And because of that, we created vocabulary quizzes. Here you can see the number of levels. And yes, this is the example of first quiz. It's short answer question. As you can see, at the top of this image, I think you can see the question. I will read it then. I will read it. Yeah, it's a question. Then it's the example where this word and which sentences this word can be used. And then we decided to include an image in order to make this short answer quiz a little bit easier for students, because it's really hard to guess just from the text. And under the image you can see the line. It's short answer text for answer. And students had to add only one word. Also, I want to notice that both quizzes were developed using vocabulary from Paul Nation, 4,000 English Essential Word, Book 1. And our students were prepared based on this book before taking these quizzes. And the most important thing that the questions for both quizzes, they same, but the form of the responses differs on multiple choice and short answer. And I want to ask you what's the right answer on this question. I will read it. Is the knowledge and ability that allows you to do something well. Example, a snowboarder must have the right to do well. How do you think what it can be? Anybody? Something? Skill. Okay. Really good. Yeah, but you can understand that it's even hard for native speakers and for teachers, yes, to guess. And I will explain later. I think in the next slide, you immediately can understand what the right answer. Yeah, it's skill. And because of that, we decided to conduct short answer question quiz first, and then we have conducted like multiple choice quiz next after that, in order to not give any hints to our students. And here we decided to exclude any images, also in order to make it a little bit harder and closer to short answer quiz. And students had to choose only one right answer, just clicking on the word or the circle. Okay, next, what was the procedure? Yeah, it was 2 quizzes. They were conducted at one day for one class and for the same students. And first quiz was short answer quiz, and second multiple choice quiz. And the obtained results were analyzed and scored by Flubaroo. And how it was, Gulnoza will explain to you, and how Flubaroo works alongside with Google Forms. Thank you for your attention.
So it is actually the tutorial part of our research presentation. But before just beginning it, I would like to tell something. Annually, according to statistics, researchers have found that teachers mostly just spend about 400 hours a year for lesson planning, for choosing materials, for making quizzes or questionnaires, and for assessment. And what do you think? Which of them outweighs the others? Which of them? Which of them took the many hours of the teacher? What can you just imagine? Which part? Grading quizzes or grading quizzes, alright. And do we have any other opinions, or it's really up to the personality of the teachers? For example, there are some teachers they critically pay more attention on making quizzes, and there are some they pay more attention on evaluating or assessing the students. But actually, it is assessing. But they have found that teachers spend more time for evaluation and assessment process. 2 weeks ago, I have talked with my friend. She actually was in academic lyceum that we have taken these quizzes, survey quizzes, and she told that I'm really busy this week. I was surprised a bit. Why you were so busy? Because this is a midterm time, and I should check about 65 students' work, which is consisting of 5 pages. So it's actually amazing that it's hard to imagine that checking that 5 pages, 45 of 65 students' work, and it takes a whole of his time. That's why she feels that like she's very busy, and she pays time first, potential, and the third one is stress. So these 3 keys always reflect this teacher's personality, That's why I made my mind up to just add this tutorial Flubaroo, which makes our work grading easy. And so before just speaking that Flubaroo is, we can just say why we need Flubaroo. First, it is a cloud-based tool, and you don't need to install it on your laptop or on your phone. It is actually in the cloud. You can access wherever you want. And actually we have another online tools that can evaluate or assess your quizzes or something like that. That we can give an example as clickers or something like that. But Flubaroo, as we just have collected the data from the survey of the teachers, and we could see that none of them just checked Flubaroo as a grading their students. So that's why I made my mind up. Just Flubaroo is like new for not all of them, but some of them is a new tool to just work on with. So it is the tool which you can grade your students automatically, and you can, after grading, send your grade sheet automatically, and your student will know all the correct and incorrect answers and everything that you can give individual feedbacks to your students, and in the form of stickers or words of paragraphs of the others. So it is an open spreadsheet for, we call it add-ons. You should just click add-ons and manage with this tool. It's actually free, and this is the 2 quizzes that we have collected from the students. Now I will want to show you the short answer question data which we have collected. Oh, sorry. So this is the sheet. We had actually 20 students. Before starting the work, we should just first of all add or install this Flubaroo. We can do this with add-on, and you should just click on get add-on and search for Flubaroo. So this is our Flubaroo. You see, it is free. And it is ask always access for your Gmail account. Wow, it's really, there's something wrong with that.
They sent you a code on your phone.
I should just do another way, yeah? Oh my God.
The technology and not the actual technology itself. So you then have to wonder, what are the learning theories behind the pedagogy that we use for digital language learning and teaching? Well, really today there's been quite a number of learning theories over a wide range in scope, and they vary according to different purposes. And they go from things like behaviorism to collaborative learning and connectivism, along with many others. And there's a whole list here as an example. Hopefully you can read it. It's very small. But some people think, and the reason I'm highlighting that, there's things like behaviorism that we use to apply different apps or methodologies and activities. The reason I highlight that is because digital language learning is not as recently emerging as you might think, and in fact it dates back to the 1960s. So, what's changed since then is our exposure to technology in our daily life, the role it's taken, the way that we interact with it, so socio-collaboratively, the way we live alongside it in our environment, and how the technology interacts with us, so connectivism. So the roles of technology in the classroom have seen it used as things like a tutor, where technology teaches the learner, a tutee, where the learner teaches the computer, a tool, where technology is used to achieve a task, and as a resource or a device that helps us to establish a particular kind of learning environment, such as a collaborative one. These changes in the way that we do interact with technology has recently seen it help to establish communities of practice in the classroom. And affinity spaces, as Guy calls them. Places in which people develop relationships in a discourse community based on shared interests. And for you guys, this would be things like KOTESOL or the TESOL-MALL Facebook groups, where teachers as learners can engage in professional development. So this brings us back again to the notion of connectivism. And connectivism has been described as a learning theory for the digital age. And it stems from socio-cultural theories that argue that learning occurs more effectively when people work together. Not only does connectivism view that learning occurs by engaging with a diversity of ideas and opinions, with new ideas constructed through shared thinking conversations, but that this knowledge can actually reside in machines. So now examples of that would be the internet, which is a vast repository of knowledge, and some would say perhaps a variable quality. And other examples might be Wolfram Alpha, which is a computational knowledge engine that relies on curated data, and Amazon Alexa has access to that as its database. And it also includes the ways in which people store knowledge within machines and how they interact with that knowledge and with other humans, as well as artificial intelligences like digital assistants, in order to take control of their own learning as they retrieve and engage with knowledge. So essentially, technology is viewed as a resource and as a way to mediate human interactions, with these interactions making use of different connections and different language forms depending on the medium. Hence, knowing where to find information and how to interact with it is now more important than knowing that information itself, with the ability to see connections between fields and ideas and concepts now a core competency. So for instructors, we no longer talk about technology replacing teachers, or even teachers who use technology replacing those that don't. We expect to be using and incorporating technologies into our classrooms. And this means that as instructors today, we need to be able to competently apply the technologies that we have access to and competently assess and evaluate the suitability and appropriateness of how that technology has met intended teaching and learning outcomes, while also understanding all levels of the educational potential behind its use and assisting our learners in being able to identify those elements as well. In other words, developing a digital language teaching model, and one that would incorporate aspects of instructor to learner, peer-to-peer, learner to instructor, learner to device, and device to learner interaction that's guided and managed by us as instructors, along with integration of in-class and out-of-class activities, with appropriate and explicit guidance to content and resources that can best manage learning opportunities for our students. This does not mean that every teacher needs to become a technology expert, but it does require moving from the sage on the stage to being a guide on the side and facilitating language learning along something like a continuum. So a continuum of choice from teacher-centered to learner-driven teaching. And we need also to adopt the affordances that digital language learning provides us and incorporate into our course design aspects like these kinds of things: ubiquitous learning, multimodal learning, recursive feedback or formative feedback, metacognition. So in this regard, and when thinking about applications and how to integrate them into the classroom and how to intricately evaluate and assess their value, requires teachers to conduct things like a needs audit to determine if technology use is the best method to employ, as opposed to another approach that might better lead to the same learning outcome. So it's materials evaluation. Something that it's long been recognized that's important for instructors to consider. And another long relied upon method for the analysis and evaluation of technological content has been the checklist. So the aim of using checklists and developing technology assessment rubrics is to lead teachers to a place where you're pedagogically prepared and practically able to instinctively implement and evaluate the technology. So whatever content you're using, you need to be able to understand and implement it effectively before you use it. So in a pre-case, while you're using it, and in a post-case, post-implementation. So the last of these is often ignored. As teachers, we do often ignore how did the evaluation of me teaching something, how did that work? We just think, oh, it was good for the students, but how could I use it better next time? So these kinds of things are often missed out. But a question-based approach to analysis and evaluation of learning technologies can be important, particularly since the rise of the fourth industrial revolution, because it's forced us as educators to continually rethink the goals, applicability, use cases, and the integration of technology into our classrooms. We now need to begin to integrate technology in a way that allows its use to significantly redefine the learning space for students and ourselves as teachers by replacing traditional teaching methods or learner interactions with only those alternates that actually add value. So what's required then is a conceptual model, one that helps us to understand the usefulness of different applications, websites or digital tasks when reviewing them for use with learners, and to understand and perhaps rethink how these activities can uniquely capitalize on providing learning within specific educational contexts, and if they are in fact worthwhile to implement at all. So this is important because teaching in the time of digital language learning sees us not just doing old things in new ways. It's actually ushered in a total era of newness. There's new things to do, new ways to think, new methods of managing relationships with others, including AI, and new practices in teaching that require us to adapt new skills and new abilities. So, we need to form a conceptual model of technology integration, analysis, and evaluation, one which helps us look at technology in terms of its intended purpose, teacher fit, student fit, for example, how we will structure its content, how we will assess our own use of it, as well as that of our students, how we will examine its inherent usability, and how it ultimately fits within our teaching toolkit. And just such a model is actually in the envelope that you received when you registered. So there's a rubric in that envelope that you can look at. It's page 2 of my handout. If you can actually see it, it's a bit dark. If you can see it, I'll discuss the core conceptual constructs I've used to go and create this instrument. So the first one considers technology itself, and when thinking about the technology, we need to account for purpose and find out if it actually aligns with our learning objectives. and provides content that can lead to learning, and if it can be used in a way that fits us as teachers and our learners as students. The second core conceptual construct, in this case, we need to look at accuracy, authenticity, currency, and adaptability, and essentially determine if the information is correct, up to date, used in a real world context, or if it could be tailored to our learning content, reused, and shared, and if so, in which ways and how. Third, when reflecting upon the effectiveness of the technology that you do use, we should look at it from both our perspective as a teacher as well as from the student perspective. And I did mention previously, it's very often the teacher perspective that we neglect. So think about how the technology helps you improve too as a teacher. Does it offer professional development opportunities? Or is it useful for improving upon your existing teacher toolkit? And for students, does it provide a range of access and activity options and the ability to perhaps resubmit or redo work if necessary? Fourth, consider the usability of technology in terms of how its application is actually important, how it adds value, and how it contributes to the classroom and to learning, and how it could best be utilized to maximize instructor time with students in ways that provide quality and tailored digital learning opportunities. Fifth, when looking at using technology with learners, also be on the lookout for existing resources, content that's already been developed, things you can use that other teachers have created, and then you can take it on board for just-in-time teaching. Consider also the way that you will examine all of these things, and quite often the easiest way is to use a rubric. And that's why these concepts have been incorporated into such a rubric for you to actually take and look at today. Okay, for the tie challenge, in this case, if you look at a specific, or if you think about a specific application or piece of technology that you actually use in the classroom, if you turn over the rubric, you'll see page 1, and there's a space there that you might be able to, let's see, look at. It looks like this. I think you were all given a pen. I did ask that you would all get a pen. If you have a pen, start to think about one piece of technology that you do use in your classroom, some chosen application or anything specific. We don't have time to workshop it, so it's a simple self-evaluation that we can just walk through. But when you're thinking about that application, initially determine how that technology that you use is significant. How can it be used to enhance specific learning outcomes in ways that are better than traditional or existing methods? Also think about how it adds value. Does its use come to improve upon past experience in some way? And in what ways are they? So an example of that might be Google Drive. Google Drive is very popular, teachers use it a lot. An example of that is previously we would have to give students handouts. Now we can permanently archive what we give and it's permanently available. You also need to understand what specific aspects of the technology you use are useful. Does it provide different quiz types or games, different assessment methods, or different ways to revise or complete homework? Also ensure that it provides a unique means of content delivery. So an example would be Plickers that uses QR codes to assess students by multiple choice as they just hand up a card. So that provides also an anonymity to students and they can all get instant responses to any multiple choice that you're asking them. Also, you need to be able to adapt the technology to your specific learning environment. So how can you adapt it or cater specifically to your students? Do you use applications like those that will be discussed today, maybe Flubaroo to instantly grade and analyze submissions, or explain everything, which is an interactive whiteboard app to provide students with multimodal feedback. Determine how best to deploy learning content through the technology. Are you selecting different modes that best suit the way that you can actually use it? Do you use it teacher-focused inside the classroom, learner-focused outside the classroom? Is it for homework only? Is it for assessment? And what kind of assessment? Formative or more formal? And when you use it, you need to think about assessing the effectiveness of it. So one way to do that is through a rubric, which is, again, why I've provided that for you to perhaps take away. You can also use that rubric and this particular challenge a little bit later today in all of our workshops to find out if those technologies that you're experiencing meeting perhaps for the first time can actually meet these challenges and meet them in a way that can help you. So in that case, when you think about that, you need to review what's being provided. And you should also, when you use any technology, learn how to develop it. And that means not just developing technology or coding or things like that, but it means developing things like lesson plans and being able to give back to the teaching community in that way. Finally, I think understand the technology well enough, as I mentioned, to provide professional development to others. And you can do that by presenting at conferences just like this one today. So, in closing, the most valuable skills I think that we can offer both ourselves and our students today are those of knowing how to learn, unlearn, and relearn. And these are liquid skills that are adaptable and can lead to lifelong learning opportunities. So all of us today must have the kind of skills to implement, manage, and work with new technologies, and to be adaptable problem solvers who are, I think, able to communicate effectively and are able to work with others in creative ways. So as we move forward, we'll succeed by working alongside our machines, and we should welcome them, because we want to program them. We don't want to be programmed by them, and we don't want to compete with them. But we want them to assist us, and we want them to help us. So in that case, we want them to enhance the learning experience, any experience that we provide with technology. So the ways that we do that, we provide things like collaborative, meaningful, multimodal, personalized, and non-linear learning pathways. And ones that are actually significant, adaptable, unique, and most importantly, add value. So right now, my question to you is, are you ready? Perhaps you're not. Anyway, thank you. I think we started a little bit late, so we might have to go straight into Mark Love. So please welcome Dr. Love. He's also TESOL-MALL faculty at Woosong University.
I was counting on Mike for a good introduction.
At about 6 o'clock, I go to school at 7 o'clock. I study at school attentively. I play with my friends at game period. I return from school at 2 o'clock.
It's content that's already been developed, things you can use that other teachers have created, and then you can take it on board for just-in-time teaching. Consider also the way that you will examine all of these things, and quite often the easiest way is to use a rubric. And that's why these concepts have been incorporated into such a rubric for you to actually take and look at today. Okay, for the tie challenge, in this case, if you look at a specific, or if you think about a specific application or piece of technology that you actually use in the classroom, if you turn over the rubric, you'll see page 1, and there's a space there that you might be able to, let's see, look at. It looks like this. I think you were all given a pen. I did ask that you would all get a pen. If you have a pen, start to think about one piece of technology that you do use in your classroom, some chosen application or anything specific. We don't have time to workshop it, so it's a simple self-evaluation that we can just walk through. But when you're thinking about that application, initially determine how that technology that you use is significant. How can it be used to enhance specific learning outcomes in ways that are better than traditional or existing methods? Also think about how it adds value. Does its use come to improve upon past experience in some way? And in what ways are they? So an example of that might be Google Drive. Google Drive is very popular, teachers use it a lot. An example of that is previously we would have to give students handouts. Now we can permanently archive what we give and it's permanently available. You also need to understand what specific aspects of the technology you use are useful. Does it provide different quiz types or games, different assessment methods, or different ways to revise or complete homework? Also ensure that it provides a unique means of content delivery. So an example would be Plickers that uses QR codes to assess students by multiple choice as they just hand up a card. So that provides also an anonymity to students and they can all get instant responses to any multiple choice that you're asking them.